Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this very absorbing session, the panel discussion, the main opening panel discussion of 14th Special Steels Convention. Just to give you a small brief about Special Steel Convention, this was a platform developed by Steelworld for 14 years back. And before COVID, we used to have actual physical conferences, mostly in Pune, because is uh, supposed to be the hub of alloy steels with a lot of alloy steel producers, a lot of auto component manufacturers, and also the auto industry. So all this combination you can get in Pune. So Pune was naturally selected as the venue for Special Steel Convention. After after COVID, we shifted to the digital format, and for last 5 years we are conducting this conference on as a in the format of the webinar. And so we are here for our next session, which is, as I said earlier, is a panel discussion, opening panel discussion about the status of special steels industry in the country, opportunities and challenges. So, as I told in the opening session, special steel has a very special position in the industry. Dr. Anil Dhawan mentioned that it produces around 10 to 12% of the total steel production of the country, which is around 18 million tons. I hope it is including flats as well as longs. And it is growing at around 6.8% annually. That is what Mr. Dr. Dhawan mentioned. So now here we are for the discussion about the present status and the future of alloy steel industry, special steels industry. I would first like to start with again Dr. Dhawan. Dr. Dhawan, you can give a brief about the special steel sector's present status and your opening comments. I will ask the opening comments for from everybody, all the panelists. So before we go to Dr. Dhawan, let me introduce. We have with us Dr. Dhawan. He was there in the previous session as well. We have with us Mr. C.H. Sharma. Mr. C.H. Sharma has been a veteran technical expert, I would say, in the steel industry. He has worked in the steel industry for last 50 years. And now he is consultant to not one but many alloy steel producers in the country. So thank you very much, Mrs. Sharma, for being with us and always being, supporting this platform which we have created. And Mr. Sharma has been supporter of this platform since beginning. So thank you very much, Sharma sir, and thanks for sparing your time. We have with us Mr. Dilip Pachpande, who is Managing Director of Mahindra's Sanyo Steels. He is there for last 20 years. Before that, he has a glorious career in Kalyani. And thanks for sparing your time, Mr. Pachpande. And we would be eager to hear from you your insights about the industry. Thank you very much. So now we will start with Dr. Dhawan. Dr. Dhawan, as you know, is Executive Director of Alloy Steel Producers Association of India, which is the governing, I would say, the apex body of all alloy steel producers in the country. And I would like to ask Mr. Dr. Dhawan about the present status, his opening comments. And so after that, I will go to Mr. Sharma and then to Mr. Pachpande. Dr. Dhawan first. Your opening
Thank you very much.
about the industry and its present status. Dr. Dhawan.
Sure. Thank you very much once again. Thank you. Thank Steelworld and your team for such a special topic and subject of specialty steel and alloy steel. I would very briefly touch upon the demand availability scenario and basically link to the current challenges and then the opportunities. Would not like to repeat mostly what I have already spoken in the previous session, which otherwise Mr. Pranab Bhardwaj would have taken. First of all, I am a very little person in front of people like our Mr. Sharma and Mr. Dilip Pachpande because they are the real batsmen. I am a person who's maybe having an overall view, but they are the persons who have really.
Sir, you are the manager of the team.
Yeah,
you are the manager of the team.
I can only reflect on, and I therefore submit that wherever I am wrong, may kindly correct me. Number one. Number two, when I come to the present status, as I mentioned previously, the alloy steel industry has literally grown from a few thousand ton per annum industry decades ago to currently, when I say alloy steel, I will certainly include stainless steel, because stainless steel is another higher form of alloy. But I am not including the super alloys. The super alloys is another industry and segment which I have learned in the last 3 years, thanks to some of our members who are producing them. Super alloys are the ones where the component percentage of alloying element is more than the iron, if I am not wrong. That is called a super alloy or something. Sir, as I mentioned, the total industry in the capacity of this total alloy and stainless steel industry in the country today is estimated between 18 to 20 million tons, with stainless steel around 5 to 6, and the balance is on alloy and special steels. When we say alloy and special steels, it also consists of or covers high quality carbon special steels, which are not produced by the integrated steel producers, or the what is called the commodity steel produced only for this consists of about 13 to 14 million tons of alloy steels, long steel products, and 4 to 5 million tons of stainless steel. As far as alloy steels are concerned, everybody knows the flat content is the typical alloy steel does not consist of the low alloying, and therefore that part we can consider as a separate. There are today ASPA, which represents almost 99% of the alloy steel, long steel industry, including the ones who have not still come into the production like amalgam. There are 20 members, and they're spread over the country, and they are catering to major segment is auto sector, which is around today the supplies of alloy steel producers to auto sector is 65 to 70% total. 20 to 25% is going to defense overall production, when I say, and 5% to the other segments. These other segments could be aerospace, could be sometimes some of it is railways, sometimes of it is in nuclear power and all. So this is what the overall assessment of this industry is concerned. And as I mentioned, it has seen a CAG growth of about 6.8% if we have seen the previous data. The percentage of this in overall capacity in the country, which is around 165 million tons. And if we look at this as this one, it is more than 11-12%. In fact, it is around 12.5%. On the consumption front, when I include total alloy steel in the country, the consumption is, again, the recent figures show, the JPC figures show, it is more than 15 million tons, including stainless steel. Now, if that be so, again, the percentage is, overall percentage around 11-12%. One thing I would like to have as a disclaimer here, or rather a point which I would like to make, that the revenue wise, it is a standard practice to say that the volume wise, we may be 10-12%, but revenue of total steel, out of that, alloy and stainless steel account for more than 22%. It has sometimes touched even 23-24%. Now, having said so, the importance of the alloy steel industry assumed importance because of the strategic segments it caters to. Say alloy steels, of late defense, which is really coming up well, and other strategic industries. Even renewable energy power is also coming. Now, what are having seen that perhaps, yes, there is a good growth, the challenges which one can look at for alloy steel industries, my past experience with the sale as head of marketing and head of kind of innovations. And now in the last 7 years with ASPA more aggressive on the ASPA front, the challenges that we are going to face are multiple. One, of course, is definitely the EV segment or EV challenge. Second would be the green steel requirement. Third one, which I would say is the demand creation on continuous basis, particularly when we see that there are cars coming from abroad, components coming from abroad, steel coming from abroad, and of course, the next one, which we have always seen, is the threats even to the people who are exporting, and then threats to the auto component industry, which is indirectly linked to the alloy steel industry. The threat of cheaper imports, I will flag it separately because there are methods, these are all trade related matters. The one by one, and that EV challenge seemed to be highest for us than the commodity steel because of the very fact that the long alloy steel was being used in good quantities in the conventional engine, whereas it was perceived to be much lower. And the impact was seen to be very high on two-wheelers. Impact was considered to be very high on two-wheelers. I'm told the study that we got conducted, that overall impact of or the penetration would have been 28% by 31 and would have reduced per unit consumption. But then the overall maybe demand could have not changed the demand in absolute terms. So these were few of the challenges. Then on the green steel, the CBAM impact and therefore the other countries' impact on the standards of the vehicles and the standards on the steel carbon emissions would have created some demand, higher demand of low carbon steels from our industry also, and whether we are capable or competent to handle this situation as it emerged during our interactions with the SIAM and ECMA. And second and third one was that defense imports, which are in good quantities, whether capability exists at the same time needed. Coming to the opportunities, very briefly, I will mention as we develop this come. First and foremost is the recent trend. Correct me if I'm wrong. The other my fellow panelists and experts are there. They are more hands-on to this. Is that the world over, the EV alone sales is slowing down. This is a statement which I'm making based on interaction with Shyam and others. Now, will this lead to a higher sales of hybrid models, which have been announced recently by a few OEMs? I request Dilip to reflect on this subsequently, which will encourage the higher demand and therefore a better opportunity. Second one, perhaps in the new tariff wars, initially there were some higher tariffs by USA, and it was perceived that auto component export from India would be affected, which was perhaps softened subsequent announcement by USA, and maybe softening more during the bilateral discussions between the governments. And therefore, that could be mitigated, God knows. But the biggest opportunity coming would be the what is called as indigenization of the defense grades. Because of the capacity available with alloy steel producers, there would certainly be two ways of better utilization. A, utilization its capacity for other segments like defense, aerospace, and others, and utilization of its capacity for exports. Exports also, when you have a capacity and capability, good export to Southeast Asian countries, good exports to Europe, good exports to USA can always lead to better utilization and better presence. And I'm sure that these are the opportunities which will come our way. Despite the constraints of CBAM or the EU tariffs or high tariffs by USA, I think it will ultimately come as a challenge as well as an opportunity for Indian alloy steel industry to increase its market share both in the domestic as well as in the export market. I think as we go along, I will close down. We will develop on the ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. Thank you for your opening remarks and your comments about the green steel and the threat from EV and all. Now I would like to go to Mr. Pachpande. Mr. Pachpande, your opening comments. With a special reference, I would like to ask you one or two very specific questions. With the backdrop of Trump tariff, which are being imposed on different countries, do you think the threat from China as far as special steel imports are concerned, number one? And has our prospects vis-a-vis other countries about the exports to US have increased? And
Okay.
your opening comments about the present status of special steels industry, Mr. Pachpande.
Thank you, Mr. Chandekar. I think it is a great opportunity to participate in this special steel convention, and which you are conducting for last 14 years. It's a good opportunity to understand the perspective of special steel that is being happening and the year-on-year change. I just would like to start with, I'll definitely throw our views on the special comment which you asked for. But before that, I just would like to look at on the basic subject which we are supposed to discuss on opportunities and threats.
Challenges.
So when we look at opportunities and alloy special steel sector is concerned, I feel the biggest opportunity available today in India is we are a growing economy. Rather, we are the fastest growing economy if you look at the references from World Bank, which indicates that we are supposed to be growing at 6.7%.
Yeah.
And when it relates to the consumption or production, we are maybe less exporting and more consuming. So we are a domestic consuming economy. So whatever we produce and the growth that is expected to happen in alloy steel industry is supposed to serve the domestic demand and requirement. And that brings us and that reflects also when we look at the industry, our index of production, like India index of production. If you look at other than COVID dip, consistently we are going up, irrespective of the volatility that is available at marketplace on automotive demand or customer requirements, etc. But we are growing. So as we look at the steel production in overall, year on year, India is definitely grown from 133 million to 156 million in last 3 years. And naturally, majority of it comes from infrastructure, construction related steel. But alloy steel industry or special steel industry also has to grow on the similar basis. The percentage of alloy steel is also in the overall steel production is growing. Initially, this market or this sector was mostly dominated by arc furnace industry, where the volumes were quite limited. There were hardly 4 or 5 alloy steel producers in the country. Now, I think they became minuscule, and the major volumes of alloy steel is being handled or taken by blast furnace route of manufacturers. Like if you mention 3 or 4 biggies, whether it is JSW, Sunflag, and whether Hospet Steel, which supplies to Mukund and Kalani Steel, Arja Steel. So the volume of special steel today being served from this sector is more than 70% of the total requirement. In our scenario, the total alloy steel when is the consumption is around 50% directly or indirectly goes to transport industry, whether it is right from tractor to commercial vehicle, including two-wheeler. And the second biggest component, other than direct component, is bearing. Bearing and auto component industry put together almost covers 50 to 60% of the total steel requirement. And though Dr. Dhawan said 25%, including flat and stainless steel, is being also required in defense, our at least when we compare the special steel industry, particularly from arc furnace route, those numbers are a little smaller than that. The other sectors where the demand is growing is engineering, oil and gas, and tool and die. I think where we are prominently present. If you talk about the revolutionary changes or growth of windmills, which requires good quality of special and extra special steel, again in oil and gas and drilling industry, also in engineering industry where infrastructure is growing, where machine buildings are happening, those kind of steel which we produce also is growing at pace better than the pace of overall steel industry situation. And this definitely is an opportunity as far as special steel industry is concerned. Second scenario on opportunity, if I need to add, the policies of India, whatever we are trying to mitigate, the external threats, whether it is coming from China, we are trying to find some ways directly, like having some restrictions, whether specification, BIS, anybody and everybody cannot simply keep dumping steel, which to certain extent is not fully yet effective, but I think it's a way forward for government support for special industry. And I'm sure ASPA and Dr. Dhawan is playing good role in execution of those policies. Third important factor when it comes to the present turmoil related to Trump and USA, it's a very premature or early stage to understand the impacts of that. But I'm sure I would like to express we definitely had some 3 or 4 major inquiries from US being floated to us. I do not know whether it's feasible because product development cycle in special steel, unless it is a kind of commoditized steel, is fast. But when you require some special steel, it takes time. So whether 90 days window can be utilized and what happens after 90 days, I think it has to be, time is the only answer, I think. Time will about explain us whether really those opportunities are going to grow or China's aggression will increase for India, because China has definitely finding every time new ways to dump. If we put BIS, if you put some other restrictions, they come with some novel ideas, and instead of supplying steel, they come with components. I think there are places where the OEM suppliers are importing direct components, so there is no question. They can escape all the routes or sort of hassles that has been, we try to introduce or reduce these imports from China, but I think they definitely find every time some innovative ways of transaction with India. So it's a long fight which we have to keep fighting as long as China is concerned to mitigate the threats of China for India in special steel segment. Second scenario related to green steel, very briefly I would like to mention that green steel is a buzzword. Everybody is saying we will be green in another 2 years or 3 years. And though definitions are not yet finalized, and you are interpret only on the basis of your CO2 footprints, what should be greenness of the steel. Definitely government has taken initiatives and they have put some 5-star, 4-star, 3-star kind of policy for making or identifying your steel to green. What is the greenness? And initially, my initial observations are, I think the availability of solar or wind energy, the pace at which it is growing, I think it will not be difficult for majority of the steel industries or even energy intensive industries to migrate from conventional energy to renewable energy. So it's a matter of another 3 to 5 years. Each of these energy intensive industries definitely will lay their hands on capturing some agreements or captive power procurement with energy producers or big energy producers from the country. So again, though everybody will have some portion of their energy consumption from renewable source, but again, they will be flat out. Everybody will have similar kind of energy consumptions. So I don't think there will be a much big factor to differentiate on the basis of only energy consumption on a greenness of the steel. Because if you look at yesterday, there was a news on ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel, which is around 9 million, 10 million ton plant, though it's a flat. But I'm just making a reference. They say by 2027, they will have 70% of their energy is from renewable energy. If when the iron root steel industry is talking about 70% of renewable energy, I think the number are quite big. Like in terms of small industries having capacity of 200, 300,000 tons can definitely make this kind of claim. But when 9 million, 10 million ton blast furnace industries are making 70% of energy coming from renewable source, they definitely are talking about the pace at which the industry is transitioning from conventional to renewable is definitely very, very high. And whether those merits of greenness are available to steel producers is again, time has to be explaining about it. So I don't foresee that as a opportunity because it's a matter of time. Each one of us can align our energy scenario. Second scenario, actually, as far as China's scenario is concerned, the uncertainty available in China, particularly for all engineering, oil and gas, and to certain extent even in tool industry, where China was the prominent or the major source of supplying to all OEMs. The OEMs from Europe, OEMs from America are definitely have started and they at least are planning to shift some of their volume to India, where the product development cycles have started by many of these people, and they are talking about anything between at least 30 to 60% of their existing sourcing. Definitely, these are not a very big volume commodity players in terms of consumption. But when you talk about these special products, it takes time development. Product development cycle is also in the range of 6 months to 9 months. Some cases it is even more than a year. But if those volumes are going to come to India, definitely it is going to be a long-lasting volumes available for special steel sector when it compares to China. Probably those may not be the scenario for automotive or bearing steel where they can simply dump because grades and sizes are quite common and in bulk. So China plus one definitely is going to be, I think, opportunity as far as special steel is concerned for India. And we definitely will get benefited from our own captive requirements, domestic consumptions, what we are having. I think those are the definitely opportunities can be utilized and worked on by the steel people. Another one big threat, which is very difficult to estimate, is demand and supply. We definitely have capacities that is being built are quite substantial, and the scaling up of the blast furnace production for special steel, I think the growth can be quite fast. Whether the demand is growing at the similar pace or not, though we are talking that our per capita steel in 5 years will grow from 80 kgs to 250 kgs, etc. But probably that those growths are possible in infrastructure or commercial requirements. Particularly special steel, I think the growth cannot be that steep. Whereas capacity building is quite fast. Because once you install a 1.5 million, 1.2 million plant, the capacity is available. In matter of 6 months, you have all the 1.2 million available to be supplied. And I'm sure that kind of volumes are not being required and available because there are a lot of almost three big groups are in process of establishing their new capacities of long product in special steel. I think which will be operational in another year or two. And if that glut of the steel availability, if demand has not grown, I think if you take a case scenario of demand is not growing of a similar situation, then price war and whether the profitability of this and then definitely whether small player can sustain in those glut kind of scenario is actually a big threat I foresee, particularly the arc furnace industry, because unless you are shifting majority of your volume to exclusive niche product, I don't think they can exist in the automotive and commodity product, which is though called as a special product, but can be produced by anybody at very high pace. I think that I feel is one of the big risks available for special steel sector, which we definitely need to, which we cannot ignore, is what I would like to.
Thank you, Mr. Pachpande. Now I would like to go to Mr. Sharma, but before that, I would like to ask you a very fast question. What about CBAM, which was supposed to be effective from 2026 in Europe?
Yeah, I think it is a risk, but it has got. I think there are some steel players who are consistent or regular exporters. Probably it is a matter of time, because since we are having a group company in Europe like Oeco Steel, which is around 1 million ton we produce annually there. So the availability of like green, Oeco is 100% world's first 100% green company and able to sort of realize premium for the greenness, whatever they are selling in Europe or even outside Europe. But their capacity utilization, considering the situation, still there are capacities available. So probably the aggression from the captive alloy steel producers from Europe will, their strategies basically will play a major role, and we need to see whether CBAM will definitely become impediment. One more aspect which I actually would like to add is availability of the scrap. So when we talk about the scrap, particularly for arc furnace, India is a net importer, and all scrap exporting countries are in process of evolving policies how to keep scrap within us, because over a period of time, when the greenness policy is becoming mature, it may take another couple of years, maybe 3 years. Then the biggest impact is coming from whether you are using scrap or you are using Mother Earth, iron ore and coke, etc.
Yeah.
So the Europe definitely have proposed many stringent norms for exporting of the scrap. Even Middle East to a certain extent have made a policy, though they are not fully applicable and executed yet. But it is a matter of decisions actually. And in that case, the scenarios can be even further drastic if you talk about greenness and availability of the scrap is concerned. That is also one more risk we cannot ignore, and we need to keep eye on that.
Thank you, Mr. Pachpande. Now I would like to go to Mr. Sharma.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay.
And again, I would repeat the specific questions which I would like to ask you. Apart from your opening comments about the present status of the industry, I would like you to address the green steel subject. How green is our green steel? That is number one. Is green steel only a fashionable word, or is there a real meaning to it? And what efforts are being made at the plant level, various plants, to make the steel green, and so on and so forth. So, Mr. Sharma.
Uh, Good afternoon to everyone. As far as present status of the industry is concerned, I think most of the special steel industry in the previous year could, utilize their capacity based on the market, and they have done not bad. I will say the growth was small, but they could utilize their capacity. But coming to the greener steel, see, most of the industries are now going for renewable steel, renewable energy. I am a consultant to Kirloskar Group, which runs the ISMT plant in Jajori. We have almost going to 70% solar, 15% wind, and 15% we may use from the grid. This will reduce the emission to maybe around 0.7 ton per ton of steel against blast furnace route, which is used by, say, Hospet Steel or SLR or others, which are having emission in the range of 2 to 2.225 ton. And they have a very little scope, even though they can go for renewable energy, but their consumption is in the range of only 300 kWh per ton against 600, 700 kWh. So they can definitely reduce their emission, whatever is coming from they are getting from the, say, grid, from the thermal power, that they can reduce. But they do not have much scope. But again, when we talk about green steel, I don't think we can reach that level which everybody is talking, that we should produce DRI by hydrogen, then renewable energy, melt it with renewable energy, and utilize that and come to something like 0.3 ton or something. 10% of maybe present emission from the blast furnace route. We may not reach that, but we can reduce. But comparing the blast furnace route with electric arc furnace, I have worked with both the areas. In fact, I have worked 43 years with Mukan, and last 10 years I'm a freelance. So I have almost 53 years of experience with the steel industry. I can tell you that today also, with best of the efforts in arc furnace route, with the scrap prices or DRI prices or pig iron prices, the gap is 10,000 rupees a ton on the billet making of the same grade, almost 10,000. That can be narrowed down maybe by 1,000 or 2,000 rupees by most efficient plants. So that gap is there. So going for only the arc furnace route, unless the scrap today, as already it is mentioned that we are importing the scrap. DRI which is available is again from the, you can say, coal base, which is not good to use, having very low metallization, very high gang material. So everybody is using very judiciously 10%, 5%, 15%, very small quantities. So if you see the growth of arc furnace industry is very difficult unless we have a availability of scrap with scrapping policy, which will be also limited, and unless we have a gas or a hydrogen based DRI, and then go for renewable energy. So arc furnace route can only make niche products and with a very small margin compared to the blast furnace route. Again, the problem with blast furnace route is most of the furnaces are smaller in sizes, like 250, 350 cubic meter, or maximum 500-600 cubic meter. So they definitely consume 5 to 10% more carbon input, or in the form of either coke or pulverized coal. So they can become little efficient if we go for larger size, little bit, say maybe going to 500 cubic meter or 1,000 cubic meter, they can definitely reduce emission. But they do not have much scope. Only thing, they have one advantage, that the blast furnace gas is being used as a fuel for billet reheating. which saves them a big cost compared to the arc furnace route where the gas is not available. You have to go for other oil, or even if you want to use PNG or a CNG, whatever will be available, still the cost will be very high. So, I will say both side. One side is the higher emission, the other side is you have very high cost. So we have to think, as a policy, whether we should go for expansion in the blast furnace route, or we should go in the arc furnace route where you don't have a scrap available. And I rightly mentioned all the exporting countries, they will utilize their scrap and they are not going to give a gram of scrap in future, maybe in 2 years, 3 years time. So our arc furnace industry will further be depending on only the local scrap, or maybe more utilization of pig iron or DRI. So again, the costs are going to be again going up, not coming down. So we have to really think which route we should have. Hydrogen generation, I think, is also a distant dream. I don't think that we are going to get hydrogen so soon. And even if they are ready, I don't think that people are ready to use that hydrogen for steel making. So far, there are only few pilot plants. I don't think any commercial use of hydrogen is already done in world. Not India, even Europe or the Western world, we have not done so far. So these are the challenges how to do it. One more area, I think, if you have to replace the expensive or a quality steel coming from Japan or coming from Korea, maybe we have to look again for our process route. We may have to go for large heat size, going for RH degassing, going for a bloom caster, and maybe hot scarfing after during fogging, and go for more or more sophisticated mills. I still feel there is a gap between our quality, what we produce today in India. We have come long way. I have seen steel making 53 years back, and today we have come a long way. But still, to satisfy the steel requirement coming from, say, Japan or from Korea, we may have to look differently and plan our future expansion with thinking of bigger heat size, maybe 1 million ton or 1.1 million ton plant with 100, heat size, and maybe down the line facilities which you would normally see in countries like Japan. So these are my opening comments. I think.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
stop
Sharma.
here.
Dr. Dhawan, we were talking about CBAM. So I think Indian government has challenged this CBAM in the international court or something like that. What is the status?
CBAM is scheduled to come around January 2026 onwards, but there are
Not very far from now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's not very far from now, I said.
So we are hearing that two things. A, they themselves are finding it difficult on the monitoring and implementation side because of the enormous data, enormous system requirement, and enormous number of participants into it, because it is basically importer-led scheme.
Yeah.
That means importer is the prime person, or the person on which the entire reliability or liability one comes on. Second one is, let us come to the Indian part as to what is happening is, as far as our information goes, our arc furnace steel producers are low-hanging fruit identified, meaning thereby the arc furnace uses already scrap electric arc furnaces, and also portion of it is the renewable energy. and therefore they are already supplying data through their consultants to the importers, identified importers, and therefore perhaps there would be continuity of supplies to EU from Indian exporters, particularly alloy steel members. That is what my information goes. We would not we would not be because of two simple things, that there are already approvals existing for those products in those countries. Therefore, the exporting units are making all out efforts that there is no discontinuity. Nevertheless, there is a provision in CBAM which says that in case your carbon emission is lower than what they finally decide as the minimum that is required, there is a penalty. There is a penalty, or what is called as border adjustment tax, CBAT. So that tax will be applicable. That will become a cost in the price to the end user, which the buyer and seller will have to sit together and sort out. So, having said so, what was being seen as a threat 2 years, 2.5 years ago, when it all started rolling, and when it is now only almost like how many 8 months left, there appears to be a lot of grounds made by the Indian exporters. At the same time, there looks like a lot of softening at EU side, and things may change after this tariff war. They may mellow it down to some extent, but fact remains the issue, as Mr. Sharma mentioned, for those who are going to be on the BF route. BF route, now, fortunately or unfortunately, Indian definition of green steel has already been announced. I don't know. I had circulated through this has been this, and the monitoring of this is now been given to NIST, whose director is Mr. Paramjit Singh, and I am also on their board of governors. So the definition is single as far as we are concerned, and the definition is that it should be, as of now, for BF route, I think it is something like the levels are hovering between 2.2. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sharma Sahab or Pandit Sahab.
2 to
2.2
2.5,
to
2 to
2.5 or
2.5.
something, and the emphasis lies on reducing it gradually, and perhaps a BF route has to reach what is called as the 1.8 finally in a scale of over a period of time. Otherwise, then they will be tabulated depending upon how they are. There would be a gradation. Let us, I think, all the steel producers should look at that definition and the mechanism. That is very important for us. And my information is that most of our arc furnace steel producers have a much lower carbon emission. Now, what you are trying to mention is it will all depend on now finally what CBAM or European authorities finally decide as to be the level of carbon emission. Meeting that nearest or highest or lowest and result will be decided by a penalty. Therefore, at least I do not foresee. First, I say yes, there is a preparedness by the exporters, and those who are the potential exporters have also started feeding in data through their consultants to the importers. As far as the exporters are concerned, they are seeing that this may turn out to be finally a good opportunity also, because many may not be able to shift to low carbon suddenly. I don't know. My other panelists can reflect on it. But I'm seeing that there's not much of a discontinuity in exports from India. Yes. Second point is, if this replaces the EU safeguard measures, because they cannot have these two as per WTO. You cannot have CBAM, you cannot have EU tariff and quota. Because in fact, if you are going to have green steel, it may be out of quota tariff regime. Therefore, it may be a further advantage if you are making. This is what I have learned. This also for everybody, that it may be overriding priority if you are a better green steel producer and exporter and your importer is certifying these documents. It may be taken out of the quota. In that case, it will be a real good advantage for the exporter.
Yeah. Do you see in the light of this tariff war, do you see any changes coming up in CBAM policy or numbers or any execution?
No. Absolutely no. In the sense, tariffs were already there under Section 232 for various countries.
Okay.
And it was only the China on which they were trying to put, and steel is only one of the commodities. Therefore, the Europeans are supplying to USA. Whatever happens, it will ultimately be impact coming on Europeans to USA, fine. But India exports to USA as of now directly is not much. It is only for one or two. It is only the components which are going to be resolved anyway. But I have a feeling we may not have that much of impact of CBAM, but because of the CBAM, the local OEMs may start demanding. Mr. Pachpande would please kindly correct me. They may they start demanding a similar levels of carbon emissions in our domestic steel. And if that be so, again, it will be kind of a cost benefit analysis and one-to-one negotiations and a capability. And I'm sure, as was revealed in the last AGM meeting with Siam and ECMA, most of the fellows were ready to offer green steel on that day itself. So cost economics will play a vital role. Rest, I don't think much of an issue as far as arc furnace alloy steel producers are concerned, already exporting, and those who would like to join this bandwagon will stand to gain.
I just, sir, I have one point to make. Looking at the economic conditions of most of the European countries, I really, I don't know whether they are in a position to impose such a, such a tax or such restrictions on any exporters. I don't know. Mr. Pachpande, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's again challenge. It will be difficult for them to mention few examples. Like if you talk about Europe's biggest bearing manufacturer, both Schaeffler and SKF, I think their biggest manufacturing base was China, and they have equally developing or actually developed their manufacturing base in India. And both of them, where almost 30% of their volumes is being exported back to Europe. So it is definitely impacted. As a policy, long-term policy, if you look at on Schaeffler and Escape, both have announced that yes, this is our time plan for green steel. But actual execution and implementation, again, it is not going hand in hand. So policy is only at policy level, and actual implementation still they are not taking cognizance of those carbon emissions, etc., whatever they are talking. So they are fully purchasing from blast furnace, where almost 3 times the carbon emissions are 3 times higher than the arc furnace. And because of, as mentioned by the panelists, that the cost difference is actually 10,000 to 12,000 rupees between blast furnace and arc furnace. So naturally, they are going by the price way and not by the carbon way. So I don't think actual implementation may not be whatever they are just projected. So, but you never know if sometime scenarios like Trump, where some illogical things happen. So whether some such thing happens.
Mr. Sharma, your comments on this subject?
As you rightly said, the one side is a greener steel with arc furnace definitely can reduce the emission to my knowledge around 0.7 if we go for 90% renewable or 85% renewable energy. And if you extending further, maybe stop using DRI, which is also coal based, or maybe reduce the pig iron consumption, because that will be also accounted in arc furnace. So with that, we can definitely reduce. But the one side is this, and the other side is a big cost. Today, I've been consulting the blast furnace route also and this route. I can tell you the difference is very, very large, and suppose the margins become very low for certain grade, I don't think the arc furnace can sustain. So that is the biggest challenge unless they make some niche product and some customer prefer because they have been approved in the past. But otherwise, the margins are very, very low. And now the question arises whether we should expand further with the arc furnace route or select instead of energy optimizing furnace or arc furnace where you can switch over to scrap or switch over to hot metal, or you can have a 50% hot metal, 50% scrap. That becomes a big challenge today. I don't think a decision can be made. And the coal prices, which fluctuate, but incidentally at today, the coal prices are much in control compared to the other input like scrap. So the difference is very, very large and unsustainable for the arc furnace route. And availability is a big issue. Today we are able to get imported scrap, but how long? I don't know. After 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, because everybody is trying to reduce emission by utilizing their own scrap. Why should they export to other country? So that is going to be a big issue. So selection of technology is become a big question. The how to select the technology or suggest to the owners that which technology we should use. We are definitely in a problem to make a good selection now because of what policy will come in future, and if the the carbon emission tax becomes too much, then I expect that the other solution is how to capture the CO2 from the blast furnace. And I heard that the cost of capturing is coming to something like $100, for say blast furnace. If you want to capture CO2 and utilize somewhere else, it will cost 8 to 9,000 rupees in that range. So then both the routes become similar, Then again, but scrap availability is a big question mark. Even with the scrapping policy, how many plants will survive with that scrap available from the automobile industry scrapping,
Yeah, but it will help, no? Dr. Dhawan, what do you think? The new scrappage policy which government has come out with, it is definitely going to help the steel industry.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged thing as far as the government is concerned. Government has really not pushed the scrappage policy in the real sense, because the scrappage policy is our bread and butter, both on the demand sustain, as I mentioned. If the vehicle scrappage policy is implemented in the real spirit, and it will push the demand of the vehicles because they will have to mandatory. Second one, if they really put it, then the scrappage processing units would also be encouraged. Now, I would like to bring to the notice of all here that just 6 months ago, the scrap study has been completed by JPC and Ministry of Steel through PwC. And that report, of course, I had shared the draft report with all the ASPA members. It shows a gap, definitely, between demand and availability. It also flags the risk to the industry. And the demand and availability has come because of higher use of scrap, or the mill generated scrap by the plants today in their own units to bring down the carbon emission. For example, SAIL, which was selling huge quantity of scrap, it doesn't sell it. It recycles. So availability per se within the country can be enhanced. It has come about. And second thing is more important, which I would like to bring, since the steel producers are also there, and I am also discussing with our other friends in ASPA. It may be an answer, what Mr. Sharma will reflect on it. See, one thing is clear as I interact, the government has already come with this kind of a thick book, green policy.
The steel
And
sector.
ASPA and its members were members of all the 13 committees. I was mostly representing even the members. One thing is going to come clear, that government will not encourage more BF capacity with fossil fuel. If that be so, and if the government has to enhance the capacities to 300, 400 million tons, how will the capacities come? So when I was sitting, I had only one thing in my mind, and I suggested to the government. I say government, it means the internal committees. When they discuss, they invite ASPA, others, and secretary, joint secretary, and others were sitting. I said, in that case, will you give the highest priority and highest incentives to the EAF units coming with the backup of a scrap processing unit? Like today, Tata has got a scrap processing unit, Mahindra has got a scrap processing unit, many more will come. But suppose somebody says that I will have a steel plant, EAF unit, I want a clearance, and I will also have a backup of a vehicle processing or whatever you call it, scrap processing unit. In that case, it solves the problems many ways, because scrap industry is one of the most unstructured and most, I won't use the word dirty industry. Therefore, even GST has got a lot of issues into it. The buyers of scrap know more than me. So having reached a situation where country had been importing, it will keep on importing. The exporting countries will have their problems, but at the same time, they will keep on exporting. USA will never stop exporting. And Turkey will never stop importing. Italy will. These are the realities. Now, in our country, the scrap generation will increase, will go very high. It is not only the vehicle scrap; it is going to be the FMCG scrap, equipment scrap, and we even went ahead in one of the why to leave the scrappage policy to the vehicle. Why don't you come to the life cycle of everything? Life cycle of even the buildings, where you will have to reconstruct the whole building after 35 years, mandatorily. So it looks more hypothetical, but as rightly mentioned, scrap is a challenge. If scrap is a challenge, then green steel is a challenge. Because similarly, renewable energy is easing out, coming. Sorry, but still, steel producers who want it 100%, they are not given. Therefore, green steel will be a challenge overall. But perhaps for EAF units who are making alloy steels today or who will come in the future, they will ultimately find a solution in getting priorities for scrap. Even we have also said that the scrap which will be generated by these scrapping units will not export. Please make it a policy. There is no such policy as on date. They can export it to Bangladesh. We have put in, ASPA has put in a firm proposal. Please make sure all those scrap generating units who are making it, give them one, this one, they cannot export, because scrap is going to be in shortage tomorrow, like iron ore, if you start exporting when we need it. So, very well said by fellow panelists, scrap is an issue. ASPA is fully aware of it. ASPA has made right interventions at the right places, including the policy making, and we will ensure that all those EAF units which want to come or they are coming, they don't face a problem. Yes, the scrap price vis-a-vis coal price is going to be a game changer anyway. You have to be between the high volumes of BF and low volumes of EF. My question would be, can BF quality steel replace the quality of EF route when it comes to the quality must as a parameter by the end user?
Mr. Sharma, please.
Let me tell you that I have developed steel through arc furnace. I was at the forefront of Mukund.
Sir, we cannot see you, but we can hear you. Now we can see you. Now you are mute.
So let me tell you, we shifted from arc furnace route to blast furnace route in Hospet, which is a joint venture of Mukund and Kalyani. And I was one of the project chief for that also. And I worked 11 years as an advisor to that plant. Let me tell you, the quality of steel which is produced through BF route is as good or even better than the arc furnace route. I have worked with the arc furnace route. I have worked with the quality of steel, the ball bearing steel which we produce with 8 ppm was as good as what you can produce with the arc furnace route. In fact, the hot metal, which is the liquid metal, which is tapped from energy optimizing furnace, is having less oxygen content. And some who are knowing technical thing, the silicon recovery in SLR, I was getting 40%. Aluminum recovery was 40%. So our cleanness level of the steel was as good or even better than the arc furnace route. So there is no question of blast furnace not producing quality steel. That is ruled out. Arc furnace route only advantage which we get is definitely you can salvage some alloying element from the forging flashes or something. As far as blast furnace route is concerned, we never used to buy a single gram of scrap. Return scrap of 7-8%, 83% of this, and 10% or 8% of DRI, which is locally available there with maybe 79-80% Fe content. So as far as quality is concerned, there is no issue. Only thing you have to size your blast furnace and you can say you have almost not very small, at least 40-50 ton minimum. I will say even bigger like Salem has 60-65 ton is good. So quality is never an issue with the blast furnace route. Only the emission, which is going to be an issue with the best of the blast furnace route. I think 2 ton coming below 2 ton is very, very difficult. I'll say 2 ton you can achieve, maybe around 1.9 somebody will say, but I will say my calculation 2 ton is possible with whatever energy you use for your oxygen plant or for your rolling mill or for the ladle refining or everything. Whatever you produce from the waste gases plus whatever you use, you should have renewable energy, maybe solar or wind, because hydro is very little available in our country. So basically it is the emission versus the you can say cost. So the cost of arc furnace route, whatever you do or may not come below 8 to 10,000 difference. That difference will more or less remain. It was much higher earlier, but with the renewable energy being used by the arc furnace route, they have reduced their cost by 3-4 rupees or maybe up to 5 rupees, 5,000 rupees a ton. They have reduced definitely the cost.
So Mr. Sharma, sorry to interrupt here. Does it mean, to a specific question of Mr. Chandekar, that if the CBAM or similar, CBAM is only by EU, tomorrow it will be from any other country also, because like India is also going for its own norms. When it comes to green emission, or rather carbon emission requirement of a particular grade of steel, then a BF route will stand to pay a penalty higher than electric arc furnace route, if at all. EF has to make a payment of a penalty or advantage. So does it mean the cost advantage of a BF route, quality being same, will be negated by virtually a premium for a green steel through arc furnace?
The difference is maybe 1.3 to 1.5 ton per ton. So you have to see what is the penalty and what factor, whether every say 1 ton will have a 10,000 rupees or 5,000 or 2,000. I don't have that idea. But
penalties are already defined. It will be minimum 50 and it can be as high as 80 to 85. Mr. Dilip Saab can also reflect on this. The penalties could be going to as high as the $80-85 per ton. Calculated already.
So then the difference is gone. 80, even if you go by say $80-85, may say 7,000 rupees or something like that. Say no, sorry, 6,000 rupees. You are going to lose 9,000 rupees anyway with 1.5 ton extra emission. 1.5 ton or 1.3 ton.
So in that case, CBAM for alloy steel producers should not be an issue at all.
Yeah, if the difference is 10,000 rupees a ton, then it neutralizes roughly.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. It's good information that you shared.
Yeah.
Because it has clarified me also, because I had been also pondering on this as to how to handle this. It will help a lot while discussing with the government officials or chambers and
because arc furnace cannot come down below 0.7, you can say roughly, and blast furnace route maybe 2 tons. So 1.3 into whatever.
I think you have worked in Kalyani. Please check up with the carbon emission that they have achieved now.
I will check with them.
That they have branded and sold. Please check up.
No. See, I never wanted to say that you can always, suppose you produce a 20,000 ton, 10,000, you can load more, 10,000, you load less. So I do not want to bring in anybody, but that is the way it can be done.
I agree with
domestic
you.
Market.
I fully agree with you. Let us keep things simple. I fully agree with you. I'm glad that you are aware of it.
Kalyani Steel. I'm not work with the Kalyani Steel, but I'm the joint venture.
No, in
Kalyani
that case, the second aspect of green steel is that you can neutralize your higher carbon emissions with what is called as a purchase of carbon footprint or something. I don't know. I don't have the right exact. You may be knowing. So you can actually sell by using your carbon credits. That is the word. Carbon.
Because domestic market, nobody is going to question you. So you can always show more loading of that, and less loading on that. You are saying you are melting your steel with the renewable energy, maybe whatever you get.
Ultimately, it will be the certificate, like a gold का वो जो certificate उसके साथ जाएगा वो decide कर देगा.
Mr. Pachpande, your views. Let me ask Mr. Pachpande.
I just. It was a very good discussion from Mr. Sharma ji and Dhawan Saab. I think it's quite clear. The industry is evolving, and if we look at last 4 or 5 years, we are discussing on carbon emission and whether it has got a cost. As long as there is a mechanism where you value your emission is cost, then it is possible to equalize. But to what extent it is possible to implement in a complex economy of India or even globally is, I feel, it's only a matter of time. And you will always have various reasons appropriately presented at that point of time to justify whatever you want to justify. Whether it is CO2 is important or particular some dominant group, whether it is a blast furnace is required, and hence whether we are able to cost that carbon emission that is being generated by blast furnace industry. And if it is done, definitely there is a good potential and survival of uniform theme which we are talking. We want to reduce that 2 degrees centigrade or whatever global norms of reductions are concerned. If we really want to do it, those industries, both blast furnace and arc furnace, can be at comparable level. But if it is not so, it is impossible for arc furnace to match the cost of blast furnace. As far as quality is concerned, it is more than proven that blast furnace definitely can produce majority of the requirements of present automotive and bearing sector, because it's only number which states. Today, automotive sector, whether it is from tractor to passenger vehicle or heavy vehicle, 90% of their component industry is sourcing their steel from blast furnace. And 10% particularly is still with arc furnace, but maybe it is a matter of time because those costs definitely will become evident at some point of time. Arc furnace has got one advantage. Arc furnace, you still can have a smaller order requirements or batches. Like when you want 20 ton, 50 ton, 60 ton. Whereas in blast furnace efficient operation, the volumes is the basic and very much required. Though I think the present players have found solutions for that also. So as far as cost is concerned, there are no questions. I think we panel unanimously can conclude that yes, there is a cost advantages available because of inherent nature of industry, India's condition of iron ore and India's market condition. Globally, when we are talking about carbon emissions, definitely the challenges, if we want to align, it has to be costed. Indian government, like European government, is making some efforts for doing this normalization. And if it happens, I think both can work together. That is my viewpoint as a summary on the panel's discussion.
Thank you.
Chandekar,
Thank you, Mr. Pachpande.
Chandekar, 2 minutes.
Please go ahead.
Want to add something. My dream plant for a hydrogen, is with a very low emission, something like 0.2, 0.3 ton. Is you have to have a DRI with hydrogen reduction. You have to have a renewable energy and to be used entirely in the plant. So that can only bring down because then you are only left with maybe some fluxes, ferroalloys, and some requirement electrode, which will take time, but electrode can be also produced with, renewable energy because it consumes a lot of power. But that still remains on paper. I don't think any of the DRI plant, which is on gas base, has switched over to hydrogen so far. So I don't know, whatever people talk about, a lot of researches are being done, that how to make, say, steel or maybe pig iron without using any of the, you can say, coal or something. But it's a distant dream. I don't foresee for next 3, 4, 5 years this will happen, So I think we have to live with lower emission, whether it is arc furnace or wherever possible in blast furnace. We try to see China has closed down smaller blast furnaces. The difference is very less. The consumption of coke plus coal for a bigger blast furnace and a smaller blast furnace, difference is not even 5 to 10%. But they have still closed down the furnaces, So blast furnace, even of 350 cubic meter or 380 cubic meter, can have only 5% or 10% maximum extra emission. Not that it is too large, but again we have to look whether that is also important to reduce that 5-10% emission also.
Thank you. We are just about to close this end this panel discussion. But before that, I want to ask a very quick question to Mr. Pachpande. Sir, we were discussing about the scrappage policy and the availability of scrap versus the availability of iron ore, blast furnace versus mini steel plant arc furnace. Do you see any opportunity or do you see any scope for government to play some role in the by way of policy making in this scrappage and scrappage? Of course, we have come out with the policy, but do you see any additional role of the government in this, or it is
actually whatever policy they have drafted and circulated? I think the first revision was circulated or signed by Parliament in 2017. And we studied it. It was quite ambitious things when they drafted this policy. And in fact, as a steel producer, we definitely have engaged Europe's one of the biggest structured scrapping company who is established in France for decades to conduct some study on the basis of this policy. And things were quite promising, and it was feasible for us. If what is written or proposed in the policy happens, then it is a structured way available for scrap generation in a country like India, where we are a very early phase of developing, because our steel consumption, and like if you talk about versus very matured place like China, is even 15%. But if those policies are effectively implemented, probably it is scrap availability definitely can help and improve. Presently, if you look at as Mr. Dhawan was talking about, that Tata has put in north near Ludhiana, Mahindra has their scrapping unit with MMTC in Delhi, even Toyota has put in Bangalore. But they are still facing a bigger challenge of getting vehicles to scrap, because whatever process of vehicles to scrap and government role in that situation, I think is still not even 20% of whatever they have mentioned in the policy. So it is definitely a role of government for effective implementation of whatever they have proposed, and that definitely will help. If it happens, it will definitely help arc furnace industry, or it will definitely help industry in overall, because if people have to get into scrapping of vehicles, new demand may come up again, etc., and the cycle will definitely happen. But presently, I think government is not able to enforce whatever they have written in the policy.
Okay, that enforcement is and execution of the policy is very important.
Yeah.
We are coming to the end of the very absorbing session. And before we end, I would like to have last comment from everybody, starting with Mr. Sharma.
As I see that the special steel industry, I think definitely will grow with whatever issues we have. We have some opportunities, some challenges, but as a mix, I still feel that our special steel industry definitely will grow. Demands will go up, and as Mr. Dhawan said about EV, vehicle, it's not picking up so well now. It takes time to pick up, and many of the countries, are already finding it difficult to sustain because of the weather condition also. Recently, I think last winter, we found, I think, a lot of vehicles were stranded, EV vehicle, because there was no power available, and it was snowing, and they were totally stranded. So hybrid is maybe the solution, except some of the area like California, where the weather is different, comparatively no snow, but the
hybrid is costly, sir.
So otherwise, hybrid is the solution for future, I will say. But hybrid vehicles are more expensive than EV vehicle, because they have to have full transmission. But it is a good news for the steel industry, because transmission component consume a lot of alloy steel and special steel. So if EV doesn't grow much, and we have a hybrid vehicle or more of a conventional vehicle, then it is a good news for the special steel industry. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Pachpande, please.
Yeah, I think irrespective whether the industries are aligning or not, but together, because of this moment, one thing is sure, that everybody is become aware and working on their CO2 emissions. Industries are asking, and definitely there is some first measurement of CO2 has started, and once measurement starts, I'm sure there is a reduction of CO2 is happening. And over a period of time, when the green steel policy or regulation comes from the government, we do not have choice but to keep tracking, like some 10 years, 20 years before, when ISO 9001 was mandatory, like that your CO2 reporting has already become mandatory for energy industry, and that will overall definitely help environment. As far as industry is concerned, if they want to equalize, I think this is a CO2 emission is a one good opportunity as traction for blast furnace or steel making situation, which will balance environment and which will balance industry as well.
Thank you, Mr. Pachpande. And the closing comment from Dr. Dhawan.
No, with the comments already made by Mr. Singh and Mr. Pachpande, I think I would also rest the case as it is, and I can only conclude by saying that alloy steels has a very bright future because of the world over going for the higher standards and high quality. Second one is that I think consumer preferences we'll have to keep a very close track of, because they can make or mar the demand. And lastly, the R&D and import substitution and development of the grades as per requirement, they would really form the base of the growth of the industry. And I think we have a very robust time ahead with the auto sector looking at 12% growth, and defense looking at minimum 8% growth in steel requirement. This is the official figures from the concerned agencies. And the capacity exists. PLI 1, PLI 1.1 in place, and the government intend to increase the capacities. And as Mr. Pachpande mentioned, that irrespective of growth, the India's GDP looks healthier than the rest of the world, and therefore all this will lead. And as I mentioned in the beginning, unknowingly or knowingly, or the great effort of the alloy steel industry, perhaps the content of alloy steel in the overall content of mild steel has not gone down, rather it has gone up. It has inched up. These are official figures of ASPA. And the overall consumption of alloy steel per capita also seeing not a downward trend. It all shows that we are all on a right path, and we will continue to engage with the consumers and look for demand creation and demand growth at the same time. Collectively, make sure that our wickets are safe. That means our markets are safe, and we continue to safeguard our markets from cheap imports. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dhawan. So we are coming to the end of this very absorbing session, and we had very good discussion about green steel, about scrapping policy, about the threats posed by EV and CBA, CBAM. So overall, it was a very interesting discussion, very informative to everybody. And I personally thank Dr. Dhawan for sparing his time. I thank Mr. Sharma, who has been regular participant and regular supporter of this platform. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma, for sparing your time. And I also thank Mr. Pachpande. Mr. Pachpande has come here for the first time, but I believe that he will keep on coming and sharing his insights with the industry. Thank you very much, Mr. Pachpande. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening to this very absorbing and insightful discussion. We will be having lunch break now, and of course, in webinar there is nothing like lunch, so lunch is also virtual. But anyway, so we'll again be back on at 2 o'clock for the first business session. Till then, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.